So I'm only a reporter. I'm not one of these magnificent writers as we have all around us. So I will tell you 3 stories, real stories, but I use certain license, literary license, because I know that nobody ever will share what we will talk about tonight here. So these are 3 secret stories of 3 men I met. 1. Hollywood actor Sean Penn uses his charm to seduce actress-producer Kate del Castillo because he knows she has been contacted by the legal team of Joaquin Guzman Loera, aka El Chapo Guzman. The Oscar-winning actor wants to interview the most wanted drug lord in the Western Hemisphere. Penn is so worried about the war on drugs that his social violence it has created in Latin America and the US that he's willing to risk meeting with the man responsible for selling 80% of the world's supply of heroin and cocaine. And of course, responsible for killing and exploiting thousands of men, women, and children. Before doing so, the famous actor goes to the living room of his fancy house in Malibu, takes a tiny bottle of white powder out of his pocket, and with the expertise of a brain surgeon, cuts the lines of pure Colombian cocaine and sniffed it. It's delicious, smooth like the best. In silence, he tells himself that it's organic cocaine, of course. After all, it has been planted by peasants in Bolivia, men who chew the coca leaves to gain strength to keep on working their harvests under the scorching sun of the indigenous land down south. He has been there, of course. He's not only an actor, he is an activist with a loyal photographer that accompanies him everywhere, just in case he does some good that has to be documented for posterity. Sean Penn, playing a dumb wannabe CIA agent, is now ready to be a brave man, to take upon himself to the task of, supposedly, interviewing the most dangerous drug lord of the Americas. When the Mexican authorities say they had captured El Chapo thanks to the American actor's intervention and full of shit Rolling Stone piece, most of his best friends could not believe it. Sean had managed to have his main drug supplier arrested. The irony. Deep down inside, the actor knows the drug supply will never stop. He rejoices on his unwise hero fame. It's Hollywood. It's America. And to celebrate, he probably smoked a joint of the finest California gold provided by his Malibu medicinal drug expert. Nothing is more tasty than some good pot accompanied by a good glass of straight cold prime Russian vodka that Putin gave him. Why not? Life is too short for abstinence. The show must go on. 2. Camilo is an editor, well known amongst Mexican media as an interesting young writer, a so-called member of the Whiskey Izquierda, the urban 40-year-old men that dress as alternites, behave like teenagers trapped in the post-Superman era, the nouveau riche that read only unknown authors, despise modern poetry, and fuck every young woman that comes near them at the book fairs they religiously attend. After a good day's work, he celebrates with 5 to 10 shots of the best mezcal brought, of course, from the organic farms of Oaxaca. However, he needs clarity and inspiration to be an admired intellectual. So after a couple of hours of alcohol, he calls his dealer. He holds tiny pieces of paper, like acid with a painted face of Homer Simpson in his hands, and he smiles at us. He places the slides of bliss in his tongue, while his friends do the same. Oh, heaven and earth. Nothing matters. The political problems he wrote about this morning in the national newspaper become unimportant. The 200 kidnapped young men his favorite writer documented in a fantastic graphic novel are irrelevant now. The drug lords are mere intermediaries between his need to escape adulthood and the bloodshed of his country. Do not moralize, please. We are here to be brilliant and nothing else, he seems to say. Tomorrow, after coming back to Earth, hungover, dragging a guilt trip of his daily consumption of acid, cocaine, marijuana, and mezcal, he will search for a good expert to publish a nice book on the need to legalize drugs. While he finds the genius capable of taking away the self-reproach he will face again tomorrow, he calls the dealer that yesterday killed three teenagers that got hooked on the crystal meth they were supposed to sell to nice urban, eco-friendly, double-standard, new-age intellectuals. We are here to lecture, he seems to say, looking at me, not to understand. Others are accountable. We are brilliant juvenile freedom rebels, allowed to be shallow while selling words of wisdom to inspire others, to make the revolution against conformity and corruption. Oh yes. Hail the revolution. Hail the freedom of speech. Life is too short to put together actions and words. Don't be a conservative nag, they tell me. Clean the blood and shut up. Read a good book. It will make you a better person. They tell me while I walk away without drinking the last mezcal of the fancy evening. They organize to discuss poverty, torture, and persecution of my peer journalists. 3. Pedro wanted to go to university and become an engineer. His poor family from Chiapas, the Mayan southern state, could not afford such luxury. The miraculous discovery he made one spring morning changed his life forever. It wasn't Donald Trump. The army was offering young Tzotzil indigenous men to join them in order to become the best they could be. This young man with copper skin and brown eyes made himself a promise. He would study hard, become a system engineer, get a fantastic job, and help his entire family out of poverty. He was to become the first of his family to be something else than a child of misery, a proper professional, a respected citizen, and the first in his family history to have a bank account in Western Union, the same bank where El Chapo Guzman launders his bloody money. 10 years after, Pedro is sweating on his military clothes. The stench of marijuana is all over him. His boots full of stains. Glued on his left boot is the plastic-like matter that got bonded from the last time he was responsible to burn in the crematorium 4.5 tons of cocaine found on the border of Tijuana. He looks beaten, jaded, exhausted. There is a hint of sadness in his eyes. There's something else, a glossy appearance in his pupils that reveals the sensory distortion and the lower reaction time. He blames the drugs he hates to burn, smoke, and snore. Pedro has not talked to his mother for the last 3 years. He is ashamed of the possibility of looking into his mother's eyes and find only disappointment and the judgment of the traitor son that wanted to be a soldier. He wakes at 4 in the morning every day. He goes to sleep at 1 or 2. As a child, Pedro loved to sleep for hours in the green meadow of the mountains of Chiapas, a daydreamer of a kind, who saw the limitless sky as an omen of his bright future. 10 years later, I meet him. He cannot sleep. Every time he tries to rest, the images of that mountain field in Tamaulipas and the 15 decapitated teenage heads with open mouth bleeds into his memory. The sounds of the unstoppable drum-like gunfire invades his ears as ants plague an abandoned cave. The other soldiers sleep while he does his nightly routine. He holds a small kerosene lamp that glows feebly in the dark. Walks steadily to the back of the military camp next to the poppy fields in Chihuahua, guarded by the CIA. He lights his small pipe of chocolate hash and holds his breath once again. After 10 minutes, he goes back into his hammock. As he walks, he refuses to look at the starry sky. Nothing good can come from childhood memories, he says. He is now a proud soldier of the war on a country that fights against itself. Bleeding brothers and sisters use drugs to forget, to forgive, to endure the unbearable awareness of reality, to let go of the inaccessible dream of earthly freedom, to tolerate the fact that childhood dreams don't always come true. Thank you.